was to create a holiday where African Americans could celebrate their culture and their history. Kwanzaa festivities are based on African harvest celebrations. Those celebrations revolve around newly harvested or planted crops. Since it began in 1966, Kwanzaa has been celebrated by African Americans throughout the United States. It is a 7-day non-religious celebration that begins December 26th and ends January 1st. There are many traditions that are celebrated during the 7 days of Kwanzaa, but at the heart of the Kwanzaa celebrations are 7 symbols and 7 principles. Here is a look at each of the 7 symbols of Kwanzaa and what they represent. Kikombe, cha, umoja means the unity cup. Drinking from this cup on the 6th day of Kwanzaa is meant to honor and remember African ancestors. It is also a sign of unity. Before drinking from the cup, each person says, Harambe, meaning, let's pull together. Kinara is the name of the candle holder.
Can you say Kenara?
Kenara.
Right, it's a candle holder.
The Kinara holds 7 candles. The candles symbolize stalks of corn that branch off to form new stalks. This is symbolic of how the human family is created. It also celebrates the idea that through children, future hopes of each family come to pass. Mazao is the name for crops. Fruits, nuts, and vegetables represent the crops and the work that went into growing them. During Kwanzaa, fruits, nuts, and vegetables are placed on a special mat as gifts for everyone to enjoy. These foods are a reminder to the people celebrating Kwanzaa of the fruits that nourish the people of Africa. Mishru Saba is the name for the 7 candles that sit on top of the Kinara. The 7 candles represent the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. The 3 colors of Kwanzaa are red, black, and green. They are important symbols in ancient Africa. Green symbolizes the fertile land of Africa and represents the future. Black is the color of the people. And red represents the blood that was shed in the struggle out of slavery. 3 red candles are placed on the right side of the Kinara, and 3 green candles are placed on the left side. 1 black candle, which symbolizes unity, is placed in the middle. 1 candle is lit during each day of Kwanzaa.
We always start with the people first, and then we put the candle up, and we light a different candle each night. So there are 7 nights in the celebration.
Mukeke means placemat. It is the base for the 6 symbols of Kwanzaa. This straw mat symbolizes a foundation. Nothing can be built without having a foundation on which to sit. The mat is where the gifts of Kwanzaa are placed. Vibunzi means ear of corn. 1 ear of corn is placed on the mkeka for each child present.
Makeke, and we lay it down. And then we have fruits and vegetables to represent people who work hard in the field.
Zawadi means gifts. On January 1st, the last day of Kwanzaa, handmade educational and cultural gifts are given. People celebrating Kwanzaa decorate with red, black, and green African-style fabrics, art, and clothing. For each of the 7 nights, families gather and someone lights one of the special candles on the Kinara. Usually, it is a child who gets to do this. Following the lighting of the candle, one of the 7 principles is discussed among family and friends. The symbols of Kwanzaa are closely connected to the 7 principles. Here is a list of the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. Umoja means unity. This principle is about building a strong family, race, community, and nation. It encourages people to come together physically and ethically. Umoja believes that when people come together, they are capable of anything. Kujijakalia means self-determination. An example of this principle is to speak up for yourself. You don't need to wait for someone else to define who you are. You are the one that creates your own identity. Ujima means collective work and responsibility. This principle is about helping others within your community. It says that we best solve our problems when we do it together. Ujima means cooperative economics. This principle encourages African Americans to build and maintain their own stores and businesses, and suggests that the community will all profit from those stores and businesses. Mia means purpose. It encourages people to find their purpose as well as to protect their legacy. It also teaches African Americans to build up and develop their communities. Kuumba means creativity. This principle talks about doing as much as you can to leave the community better and more beautiful for future generations. Mani means faith. It is about believing with all your heart in your people, parents, teachers, and leaders, and the righteousness and victory of their struggle. It teaches that without faith in your community cannot survive. The tradition of the 7 symbols and the 7 principles of Kwanzaa are values of African culture. They contribute to building and reinforcing community among African Americans. On December 31st, there is a feast held as part of the Kwanzaa holiday called the Great Feast of Karamu. The 3 colors of Kwanzaa, red, black, and green, are especially important during this feast. The feast is held at a home, church, or community center that is decorated in an African motif. The feast includes traditional African dishes, as well as dishes with ingredients brought to the US by Africans, such as sesame seeds, peanuts, sweet potatoes, collard greens, and spicy sauces. The foods are placed on and around a large mkeka, and a program is given as part of the festivities. Like all special holidays, every family celebrates Kwanzaa in its own way. Most celebrations include song and dances, African drums, storytelling, poetry, and a large traditional meal. Millions of people every year celebrate Kwanzaa. It is a special week honoring the values of African culture while inspiring African Americans throughout the United States. Thanks for following Clarendon Loop. Be sure to subscribe. For more free resources, check us out at Clarendon.
So that gives you a little bit of an idea of what Kwanzaa is. It is non-religious, but it's extremely spiritual. Christine, introduce your husband.
Oh,
Please.
me? Oh.
Christine's been here every night, but she didn't have her husband. So where's your husband? He's coming in. And I thank you for standing so that we could see you. In African tradition, before you do anything, you ask your ancestors permission. It's like a prayer. And so we're going to ask our ancestors, my ancestors, to be with this gathering. Tobias, you can help me. Is that okay? Give it to Tobias when I get done. Ancestors, we ask your permission to teach, to lead, to guide, to be examples. I'll show you. We ask there to be fellowship, there to be warmth and light and love in this gathering. We ask that there be harmony and that we have harmony, that we may come together. I'll show you. Bless those who teach to also learn. Bless those who stand apart and above to be good examples for the future generation, so that we may learn to live together and work together and be successful together. Ashe. Be with us, ancestors, from this time on, and bless us with all the knowledge and the wisdom that you've given us in the past. Ashe. The lighting of the candle.
I'm gonna have Yum.
All right. The sixth night is Kuumba, which is creativity. You can stand right over there in that little slide. There you go. Good job. Who's telling me right there to five? Is that Darlene? See, that's why she has anxiety. She wants to control stuff. That's a joke. That's an anxiety. Look at her face. We'll write them all tomorrow night. Thank you, Tobias. So, I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to have some presenters, but I'm going to ask Cassia to come up. They want you to do your poem first. You ready? So, one of the reasons I am where I am is because my parents had expectations of me. Anybody's parents had expectations of them? That's right. That's right. You go to the level of what is expected of you. And if you're smart, you'll go beyond that. So I want to thank the Moors. All you Moors, raise your hands. These guys live up in the Sacramento Mountains, but they come whenever they can, and they joined our church, and the kids gave a wonderful Christmas pageant. You should have seen it. Did we record it? We're going to sell it. It's just that good. But they did an excellent job. And Cassia wanted to do some of her poetry tonight. So I'm going to move out of the way. I'm going to let her sit down where I'm sitting. And then when she's done with that, we'll have the Peeler family to come make the presentation. You're on. You see yourself on there? Oh, perfect. No, you just get it, girl.
Habari Gani. What is the news? Kuumba, creativity. Creativity is power. It comes just like a flower. Comes and goes each hour. Sweet in a mouth, not sour. My creativity is power. Creativity shines. Wrongdoers it blinds. Creativity is an outline. Creativity takes time. My creativity, it shines. Creativity feels every time it reels. Creativity helps heal. Did you know it also helps reveal? My creativity feels. Creativity loves just like two turtle doves. It sees the beauty above. My creativity loves. My creativity is me. It helps me learn to be. My creativity flies free, just like a busy bee. But the one, the best of all, my creativity is me.
All right. You see a budding poet there? Yeah. Yeah. So as a parent, I'm going to expect more, okay? What can I say? Thank you very much. Our presenters for tonight are Ron and Carolyn Peeler. A side note, when I first came to Alamogordo, I met them at a NAACP meeting. And when we got done, we looked at each other and said, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. The leaders had gotten older. They started fighting with each other. They weren't doing very much. And so the Peelers helped me in the long run to bring the NAACP up to very high standards. And they supported this church, and they are very loyal community people. And so I'm glad to have them on tonight. They are founders and co-founders of Advise, Train, and Guide, ATG Limited. ATG LLC develops and provides various types of community education seminars and training to their customers. They are here to make a presentation on the sixth principle of Kwanzaa, Kuumba. Will you please join me in extending a warm welcome to Ron and Carolyn Peeler? I think you can get in here. There we go. You might want to slide your chair over. Good evening, everyone. Of course, I'm Ron, and this is my wife, Carolyn. It's been a trying couple of months. And with that being said, Carol and I are thrilled to be here. So what we like to do is share a biblical text with you, with each of you, which speaks of Jesus promising his presence with two or three gathered together. So whenever there's two or three people gathered together, Jesus is there. So if you will, dear Lord, thank you for the promise to us that where two or three are gathered, you are there in our midst. Lord, we welcome you amongst us today and celebrate the gift of life that you have lavished upon each of us. We ask that you open our ears so that we may hear your voice. Open our minds so that we may receive your eternal wisdom. Open our spirits so that we may know your leading and your guidance. And open our hearts, Lord, so that we may receive your wonderful love. We ask all this in the glorious name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. Okay, we're going to be doing, what's that, young lady? Kuumba. There we go. Good evening, everyone. We'd like to thank Owen Chapel AME Church for inviting us to participate in their annual Kwanzaa program. We think it is always wonderful when people can come together to celebrate in the spirit of friendship. We're here to share our thoughts on the sixth day of Kwanzaa, which is Kuumba, and it means creativity. This principle tells us that we should always do as much as we can in any way we can to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than what we inherited it. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, creativity means the tendency to generate or recognize ideas, alternatives, or possibilities that may be useful in solving problems, communicating with others, and entertaining ourselves and our community. However, that is easier said than done, and we can become overwhelmed with ideas on how to make our community better. At this time, Ron and I would like to share with you how we make Kuumba part of our daily lives.
Loud as it go, man.
The last few years have been exceedingly hectic for us.
He's not in the mic.
My wife and I have dealt with multiple issues that seem to defy the imagination, even explanation or reason. As we work through those challenges, what our parents taught us frequently came to mind. Things like never forgive more or where you came from. Never disrespect yourself, your loved ones, or members in your community. Always be gracious and polite, and maintain high standards of ethical behavior during stressful situations. Why? Because others surely will not. And last, but definitely not least, treat others better than you expect to be treated. Mark Stern, a 1960 novelist and cleric, said, respect for ourselves guides our morals. Respect for others guides our manners. Just think how different our response to COVID could have been, but the January 6th could have happened. It's the idea of Kuumba that is something our global and national communities chose to pursue and embrace. In the spirit of Kuumba, I do my best to always honor the words of Mr. Stern by always treating people better than I expect you to do, which is nothing more than using good manners. And as an education and training manager, I always make sure I develop
community-based learning content for my training sites that support the ideals of inclusiveness and creativity. The sixth principle of Kwanzaa should be more than a concept, an idea or notion. Kuumba can actually be a way of living built on respect for our communities and by extension, respecting and creatively uplifting each other.
And speaking of creativity, look at this magnificent event that we have here tonight. People have tuned in from across the globe to attend our program to share their thoughts on the meaning of the principles of Kwanzaa. Let me share a story about a woman in history who blazed a path to the heavens and changed the trajectory of the space program. Her name is Miss Carolyn Johnson. You know her story from the movie Hidden Figures. Miss Johnson was an American mathematician whose calculations of orbital mechanics as a NASA employee were critical to the success of the first and subsequent U.S. crewed space flights. She did this in a segregated and often hostile environment that oftentimes overlooked the accomplishments of women and people of color. But Ms. Johnson refused to be silenced, and as a result, personifies the idea of Kuumba, because she definitely loved her community better than what she found it. Just like Carolyn Johnson, as a program manager, I too am responsible for ensuring that I provide calculations that are timely, relevant, and accurate. Let's all take a stand this evening and embrace the spirit of Kuumba and ask ourselves this simple question: how can I make my community better? We can choose to be better, or we can choose to volunteer with a number of service organizations and support programs within our school and community. In the words of Benjamin Franklin, one of our founding fathers, tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn.
In closing, we would like to share a story with you called The Adventurous Ant. Not aunt, ant. One day, a little ant was out for a walk. We know he was out for a walk because he was wearing woolen socks, ankle boots, and a brightly colored backpack. The day was sunny and mild, and the weather was just perfect for an afternoon stroll. But Mother Nature had other plans. The sky quickly became overcast. The wind started to howl when it began to rain. The weather was fierce, so much so, the ant lost his backpack and his socks were soon soaked with water.
Pretty soon, one of his great friends came to look for him and found him holding on to a tall blade of grass. The ant told his friend, "We need to build a boat because I don't think this rain is going to stop." His friend told him, "I agree, but we're not going to have time to build anything, especially a boat. So take this rope I brought and help me tie it to this blade of grass." Once the two little ants were secured, they both began calling for help. Pretty soon, the rest of the ants in the colony came out to their rescue. And the second ant told everybody to hold hands with just hands, not someone, and hold on, he shouted.
By this time, the rainwater had gotten deep. The sky was dark and they were being tossed to and fro by the waves. But that brave clump of ants refused to be defeated. They stayed together, kept kicking their little legs, and floated on the surface of the angry water. Just when they thought their situation was hopeless, the sun came out. The rain stopped and the water receded. The ants let out a collective sigh of relief, and cheers rang out among the survivors because they had overcome danger, adversity, and Mother Nature.
Although their little colony was destroyed, they were happy that they had one another. And because they did have one another, those industrious ants reason your community even better than it was before. Those little ants truly exemplify the spirit of Kuumba.
The moral of the story is that Kuumba-inspired communities don't waste time or energy being divisive or working against their best interest. What they do is support, respect, and respect one another through good times and bad. So, in closing, please continue to share in the spirit of Kuumba. Thank you.
Let me give you some insight before you ask the question. Some of you don't know this. Most of you don't know this. This was the first husband and wife team that was on the security for the president. Was it Clinton?
Clinton and tail on the bush.
So they were on security team and they had to sign a paper about security stuff. And so they've been at the highest level of security protecting the president of the United States. They don't brag about that a lot. And Ron has traveled across the country doing security, showing businesses and organizations, churches, how to be safe. That was their profession, security and showing people how to be safe. So after they retired, they went back to work. Some of you guys know about that. Carolyn's been in Toastmasters for 20 years, 30 years. You know what it is that teach other people to speak and not stutter. Or it's an art. 30 years. Ron has traveled many places. He may have gone overseas. He didn't tell me all the stuff because some of the stuff he's still got to be quiet about. He's starting to see things. You understand? He's seen some things and he knows some things he can't talk about. But if you would like to ask them about what they do now and how they keep this community going, even after they retire, questions, your questions. That's allowed.
Okay.
They didn't need to. They didn't do that.
We're here if you have questions, anything you want to ask. Yes, sir.
Sunday school lesson here. Let's see, Carolyn McKenzie, Brigadier General in Alabama. You have any knowledge of that?
No, I do not.
McKenzie?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. Just like the world, the question was, do I know a specific individual within the United States due to my military service? And the military is a big place, just like our community. And sometimes people think it's insular that you will bump across someone. And it's just sometimes it's impossible. But no, I do not. Any other questions? Don't be bashful. It's okay. We don't bite.
So you have the, as far as your clearance, you have the highest clearance that's available for you to be able to get to different places like the embassies, the areas, going across the seas. Or
Let me say this about that. Before I got out, I worked in Space Command. So my primary duties there were to support a deployable space support segment. We were a 13-man quick reaction team. We were privy to anything having to do with that particular platform. So the short answer to that question is yes. For me, I was fortunate enough, along with my wife, I was in the military for 26 years, and then there were 4 that they wouldn't let me go due to my training. So that's a total of 30. Having said that, most of the time that I was in, I had an above secret clearance. That's just the luck of the draw, and I was fortunate enough and blessed enough to have those types of jobs.
Ron, what branch were you serving?
I was in Air Force. Yes, sir.
And I think that young man right there was like, he had a question too. What's your question? Oh, let's hear it to the bottom.
Peter plays a great interesting.
Well,
You're
thank
very,
you.
he's very interested in, military and he learns history and wars and.
Now, I will give a shameless plug for my wife. One of the things she does is she teaches a class that is called Leadership Through Public Speaking. And guess who the age group may very well be that she provides training for. So if you're interested in that at some point, and the reason why we're bringing it up, we truly believe that at the youngest age, women want to be cognizant of their surroundings. They should be able to stand up and speak for themselves and therefore be advocates for themselves when certain things happen where they perhaps their behavior is challenged by an authority figure. And you don't get there by, as the pastor said, oohing and eyeing. You get there by being able to stand in the gap, so to speak, and talk about who you are, what happened, why this occurred as it did, and be a reliable witness for yourself. We taught our children to do that. And people were always, did I say, and people were always surprised at their younger or tender ages that they were so well versed. And we believe that's one of the things that people should do to protect their children against outside influences like predatory behavior, people with bad attitudes, and oftentimes teachers that don't have the best interests of the classroom at heart. So for a little one to be able to verbalize what's going on, we think that's really important to really do.
I have a question. If I could get a group of kids, 8 to,
It has to be 10 or over.
if I could get a group of kids 10 or over, could you provide films or trips to the base so they could look around for anything? 'Cause some of them have never been there.
Now, for that, you would have to go through the public affairs office.
And the public affairs office does set up tours for people outside of the military to come on base and to take a tour of the base. I get asked them, I do have a friend that works there, and I'll ask them how that process works.
And keep in mind, as the threat level changes, as our society changes, there'll be restrictions on that. One day it might be something that they'll do, and the next day it might be something that, no, we can't do that anymore.
Carolyn, did you serve also?
I did. I served in the Air Force for 25 years.
And oftentimes right beside me, strapped up wearing a gun. He was something else. He was a pimp, let me tell you.
Well, where did y'all start it?
Where did we start?
Yeah.
Luke Air Force Base in Arizona.
Arizona.
Anything else?
Could you tell us just a little more about ATG, some of
Sure.
the aspects of that?
Sure. For those, the question was, can we share a little bit about our business? If you are interested, there is a website. It's called Warriors, common spelling, to Mentors. And if you Google that, it will come up. There are 2 sites. There's a site that explains a little bit about what we do. And the second site is an online classroom. Right now, the 3 classes that we have are free, but eventually that is getting ready to rotate into a pay site. What you can expect to find there are children's stories like the adventurous ant. You'll be able to find classes about being situationally aware. In other words, when we cruise around, what is it that we do? Do we just happily and blissfully go out the door, or do we pay attention to what's going on around us? Another class that we've got right now is called personal behavior. And for us adults, we've learned those things. There's no need to necessarily rehash that for us older folk. But for that younger age group, there's examples in there about how a person should comport themselves and why it's important to behave a certain way. And of course, if you've ever been out and about, then you understand why that type of training is required for some folks. Having said that, there will be classes for what we call active parenting. And we don't go in and tell people that you've been parenting wrong or what you're doing is not the way we would do it. We give our seminar attendees tools that they can use to add to what they're already doing. If things continue going the way they are, I should be teaching a class on the Hill here fairly shortly. So keep an eye out for that. And one of the first classes will be active parenting for men, because sometimes we're often short shrift when it comes to training. Sometimes we tend to learn the way that person taught us. And oftentimes we find ourselves in the middle of parenting crises and we don't have the necessary tools to get through whatever it is that's going on. So we like to try to add a little bit of something so that they can say, do a little bit of this today, a little bit of that tomorrow, and get that happy family dynamic going. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.
I have one other question.
Yes.
Okay, when I was going to college there at Howard University, my biology teacher that taught about was Dr. Sheila. She was a 3-time Nobel Prize. And what she ended up doing, she ended up telling us that the things that she did with her children, with their children, is they would take them out as they're walking, and they would tell them, look around, pay attention to everything you see. And then when they end up getting home, they would ask them to explain everything they saw. Is that one way to help develop their mental state? Because that's what we did with them.
Most definitely. The question was pertaining to a particular individual using a training method to ensure that their children were aware of what's going on around them. I like that. That's one of, not that exact tool, but that's what we call situational awareness. On one level, it exercises the little minds and gives them an opportunity to interact with their parents on a non-authoritarian basis. In other words, let's have fun. Let's do some things together, which is always good, shared events. But the other thing that that teaches is to remember and recall, especially if a young one is walking from here to there and that car pulls up or that van pulls up and it's got no windows on it. In other words, what did you see? How many people were driving? Not everything we teach is a negative, so to speak. It's not always bad news, but every single thing we teach has tactics in it, which can be related to situational awareness, even the active parenting. As an example, one of the formats that's being currently developed deals with parents and pools. So we have a whole section that we use to relate how parenting is a flexible ideal, but when you apply it to a danger area like a pool, as a parent, there are other things that you now need to be aware of because you've introduced a risk factor into your home by having that pool. Does that make sense? So from a situational awareness aspect, we're not telling you that you've done anything wrong, but these are things now that you should do to ensure the safety of your children, because as part of your responsibility as a parent, that's what we do.
Thank you.
Well, let me ask you a question. Now, this is personal, and give me as much information as you can, because I want to teach you all. You spent 30 years in the military, and now you're a consultant. Could you share with us, or could you share for the kids to know the largest contract that you received? Don't tell me who it was, but the largest contract you received being a consultant.
How can I explain that? And I have to be
I want
honest.
them to realize how lucrative this can be because of the experience that you have and what people are willing to pay for.
That's a two-pronged question, and I'll show you why in a minute. And of course, when I'm talking about parenting, I have to be honest with you because my son is watching. I can see him right there, so he's paying attention. Our son is watching. This field can be, as the pastor said, lucrative, but without going into details, it also breeds a level of contempt from people who are already in certain spaces. One of the biggest problems we run into is law enforcement. And an example of that was we were bidding on a contract. One of my contractors, his name is Eric, was bidding on a contract in Maryland for a university, specifically dealing with situational awareness, rape prevention, whole host of things to include things that could be done for other family members that were related to the students in that particular university. Everything was going well. However, once the chief of police for that university became aware of a contractor in their midst, preaching blasphemy, so to speak, they were up in arms. The first thing they asked us for was an outline, which we don't provide. The next thing they asked us for was our curriculum, which we don't provide. And quite quickly, it devolved from us coming in and providing a service to territorialism. The chief of police said, well, I can do this. And the response from the faculty members and the regents were, well, then why haven't you done it before? So consequently, we lost out on that particular contract. So not a direct answer to your question, but that's the level sometimes that we deal with. But there are also inherent risks to that because one, there's always that individual or group that wants to take your information. Secondly, there's always that group that resents you being in that space because for some reason they feel as if you showed them up. So I hope that kind of sort of answers the question. No, no.
There are certain things, people in security who have high credit and knowledgeable as you are, they can't share with you. I asked him, he said no. There's a reason for that. There's jealousy, there's envy. And he has to be real careful. He has to do security from here, and I didn't know anything about it. And we found a bullet over at the library. We were doing a Black History Day, and someone put a live piece of ammunition on a piece of metal that was very hot, and hope that it would go off. He found it. So he's been watching out for me for a long time. Didn't tell me much about it. But he knows things that I don't know. He's looking for things that I don't see. But like I was telling my congregation, you have to be aware of everything. 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 Every time you use your phone, somebody can capture that information. You have to be really aware. And these two are. So when they say you know, then you know. I want the kids to know how much you can make as a consultant later in life. I'm getting ready to retire. I'm doing that too. But share with you some information. It's not healthy for the community that they're in. And there's certain things that they have to keep quiet. Now me, I just run my mouth, so I can never do security like this. But there's a reason that they tell me no. And so let's give them a hand for this.
Before we go, in closing, I just want to say there's a class out there on our site. It's coming due. It should be here shortly. Our content developer has it now, and it's called Stalking 101. And I would suggest to you that if you have male or females, women or men, anyone that you care about, have them take a peek at that course when it's ready. There's a section in there that deals with toxic behavior and how those behaviors can oftentimes devolve into what we call murder in slow motion, which is stalking. To me, it is a serious issue because we have children. Any number of people out there in the community have experienced this other than celebrities. And it is something that we all need to be aware of because, as you know, we just had a major incident as a community in Idaho. And that's nothing less than stalking. So a lot of times people involved in that will leave behind clues, not for us out here to see the public, but for the people involved in it. So I would love to think that we could all become educated enough to where things like that slowly go by the wayside. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
It's okay if I record you? Clifton, you listen well. There are certain things they don't want me to say, so I have to be quiet too. The jokester there, Clifton Randolph will be your speaker tomorrow night. Imani, I've seen it without the I in it. I've seen Mani recently. It means faith, and so he's going to talk to you tomorrow about faith. Dr. Walker, raise your hand up. This quiet guy here got his doctorate in education, and he started at the high school, and now he has a church, and he's going to be working with me with the NAACP and Cassia to do a leadership program in the future. So that's why I'm trying to get on base. But you guys hook up because they have some leadership skills that they're willing to offer to us. Any questions before we have food? Okay, I'm gonna ask Melanie and John to feed the kids first. We have peanut butter stew. They don't have to have much, they can taste it. There's rice and peanut butter, but would you go help Gaby serve that? And as soon as she gets done serving the kids, then we'll let the adults eat. Christine, you got me all excited about some kind of bread pudding. Did it materialize? Where, oh, tomorrow? Okay, I thought it was tonight. Okay, sound good. So, people in Zoom land, I'm sorry, these people get excited and they just run their mouth. So we'll see you tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. Thank you for joining us, and God bless you. Yes, sir.